You don't like button slicers in Power BI that much? Because probably you can't edit them as you like. In November 2023, finally Power BI released a new button slicer. Previously, button slicers were like this. When you selected the buttons, the colors were black. You couldn't change the shape or use images, and you didn't have that much control on the layout. But now you can easily play a lot with the layout and create very interesting buttons like what you can see on websites. Now it's the time to dive in and learn how to use the new button slicer. If it's the first time you're watching my videos, don't forget to like and share it, and subscribe to the channel to get the notification for the new upcoming videos. Stay tuned. To use the new Power BI button slicer, make sure that your Power BI desktop, which is absolutely free, is up to date, or install the minimum November 2023 version. Also, you need to enable it from the preview options. To enable, from the File menu, open Options and Settings, then Options, and from Preview Features here, make sure Button Slicer Visual is selected. Click on OK. Close your Power BI and open it again, and that's it. Now you can see the button slicer here in the visuals list. Let's first compare the old slicer with this new one. So I just choose the older version of the slicers and then drag the product category to each data field. You can see this slicer shows us the items available in product category, and you can easily choose any of them to slice and dice. I previously created a video on how to create and use slicers in Power BI and described everything there. You can watch it to become master in slicers. So to change this slicer to a button slicer, you know that from the Format menu and from the slicer settings, you can change the style, and if you choose tile, the slicer shape will be changed to a button slicer. Now if I click on each button, you can see the visuals are changing based on the selection. So let's see what formatting options we have here. As you can see, we don't have that much formatting options here, and the only thing we can do is maybe dragging the corners of this slicer and makes it a little bit different. But unfortunately, we don't have control on the colors. For example, if I click on this button, you can see it's black, and I can't change its color when selected, or I can't use a different shape for it. So, what if I want to use an image on the button or even an icon? It's not possible. So, you can see we need to apply lots of things on the button slicers and improve their layout, and let's see how we can do it. So I just remove this slicer, and again from the visual pane, this time I choose new slicer. And the same as before, I drag the product category field into it. Let me change the size to this and then go to the format pane. You can see now, here we have a lot more options that we can play with compared to the normal slicer. It's forceful to start with the layout. You can see here the number of rows is initially set on 3. I just decrease it to 1 to have only one row of buttons. For the columns, you can also change to the number of columns you require. If you decrease the number of rows and columns less than the total number of items available in your slicer, you can see a scroll bar here to just scroll up or down to see all the items. But to be honest, in terms of UI UX design, it's not recommended to use the scroll bars. So, try to change the number of rows and columns and also the size of the slicer to whatever you like in order to not to see these scroll bars. You can change the spaces between the buttons here. Now it seems this new slicer is very similar to the old one, and if I click on one of the buttons, you can see the selected button is black. Let's check the color formatting options and explore it a little bit more. So, if I open the buttons section from here, you can see the same as the normal buttons, we have different states for default: hover, press, and selected. So we can easily change any of the color we like. For example, when the default option is chosen, I change the fill color to light gray. Then I choose the selected state and change the fill color to something like blue. I don't like this border around the button when selected. So when we are still on selected state, I go to the border section, and from here, I can change the color, or easily to remove the border, just turning this toggle off. We can use a shadow or glow around the button as well from here, but for now I don't use them. The other option available here for us is the accent bar. If I turn on the toggle, you can see this accent bar beside the buttons. And we can easily change the position, color, transparency, and width. There are still many more options that you can apply. You can easily change the padding around the text. You can change up, down, right, or left padding from here. Cool! Now it's the time to see the shape options. So from here, I click on shape, and here you can see the different available options. Let's start with the rounded rectangle. From here, you can easily increase or decrease the number of pixels that the corners should be rounded. You can also customize it if you want to have different rounded corners. We can also choose the snip tab shape. And as you can see, we can increase or decrease the value for top and bottom. Or easily turn on the customize style and change the value for any of the corners. We can also change the text or the value on each of these buttons. To do so, let's open the values section. Here we can change the text size, color, transparency, and alignment for any of the states we like. We can also set the text alignment from here. I centralize it. Then we can choose the display unit, or if the values have any decimal points, we can define it here. The next option is very interesting, and we can replace blank values to any option we like. So we don't need to change the values when cleansing the data. The other new option here is the ability to add a label on our buttons. Depends on your requirements, you can choose this option or not. I leave it as it is and turn off the toggle for the label. These are the settings you can use to create a really nice looking slicer. The other thing we can do is to add images. So I just open the images section. You can see in this section we have also different states. and we can choose any of them to apply the changes. So here, if I want to add an image, I should use a measure which contains the image URL. First, we need to find some appropriate images to use for different categories on the slicer. There are lots of different options available for you to find images. You can easily Google them or use websites like Pexels. Or you can open your PowerPoint and from the Insert menu, choose the Pictures and Stock Images. You can search for different things you are looking for. I saved some different pictures for these categories on my local machine. Now it's the time to create a measure. So I go to the Key Measures and here click on New Measure. In the Expression section, I write the name of this measure, something like Product Category Images, which is equal to, and then use the switch function and open parentheses, and then Shift Enter to go to the next line, and max function and open parentheses, and then choose the product category field and close parentheses, put a comma and go to the next line. And then inside double quotations, insert the name of the category, for example computers, and then comma. Then define when the category is computers, choose image 1, and then comma. We do the same process for all other categories we have. And at the end, close the parentheses. Now we need to change these text values of image 1, image 2, or any other images to the URL, which can get the real images. As we previously saved all the images on our local machine, we need to upload them on a service. If you have a host, you can easily do it. You can also use Dropbox, or even there are a few free services available to upload your images like imgbb.com that you can easily upload your images. To find out the URL for the uploaded image on the imgbb.com, when the image uploaded, you can see this HTML code here. Copy it and paste it instead of the word image 1 in your DAX code. Now, you need to delete all the characters from the end up to this JPG and from the beginning up to the second HTTPS. We are doing the same process for all other categories and then apply the measure. When the measure completed, we can go to our slicer and format pane. And from the image section, and then field, add the measure we previously created. Now we may just need to change the size a little bit bigger or smaller, and there it is. Now let's make it a little bit better and apply some formatting options. In the shape section, I just change the shape to a rectangle to look much better. Or let's reverse it back to the rounded option, but decrease the pixels a little bit. Then, we can change other properties like the fill color or text formats to make something look good. Stay with me to change some of these settings together. Now, when I select each of these buttons, you can see the visuals are changing and filtering based on the selections. If we go back to the image settings on the slicer, we can see there are a couple of options available for us to change. We can change the image's transparency. 100 means full transparent and 0 means without any transparency. We can also change the saturation to move from a colored image to a black and white one. Or we can make the images blue. For example here, I increase the blue percentage a little bit when I am on the default state and put it on 0 on other states. So, when I hover my mouse or select any of the images, you can see they're completely clear. That's great! Now let's put this image on the background of the button and show the text on top of it. To do it, easily turn on the Set as Background toggle. Now the button value went into middle, and probably we have to apply some changes to the text value to become more readable. That's perfect! We created a very nice looking button slicer together. Now I want to create another button slicer for product subcategories, which will be look like this to be more look like a web design button. When I choose any of these categories, the values for these subcategories will be changed. The first part of this video finished here, and you can watch the next part on the channel. Please like and share this video and hit the subscribe button to get the notification when the new video uploaded. See you on the next video. All the power.